This is the worst the Philadelphia 76ers have been all year. 13 games under 500. Let's break it down on Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Locked On 76ers. We're your host, Keith Pompey, 76ers beat writer. I'm Kayla Santiago, sideline reporter for the Delaware Blue Coats, the NBA G League affiliate of the Philadelphia 76ers. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you like, comment, subscribe wherever you're listening to podcasts as well. In addition, you can also check us out on our free daily newsletter. That's on lockedondaily.com to get all your fix of all things Philadelphia 76ers. So an ugly end to the game last night, 106-103, the 76ers fall. They are 13 games under 500, which is their worst so far on the season. And Joel Embiid, the player you rely on down the stretch at the end of the game, especially with Tyrese Maxey struggling, turns the ball over late in the game. We're going to get all of it right now here on Locked On 76ers. Keith, you were there in the action. I mean, down the stretch, the 76ers could just not pull it out. What was the biggest thing that you were able to see from just being there, how the fans reacted, everything in between? Because this game, the 76ers could have had, and they blew it.
Yeah, I mean, here's the problem. I mean, the thing with the 76ers, everything was set up for this game was like, basically we're going to try to get Paul George involved. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to bring them all in together. We're going to let all of them, try to attack and win this game. And the thing that really stood out here was the game. They were down 105-103 with 1 minute and 17 seconds left. Embiid misses a basket. Then Maxey misses a basket. Then George misses a basket, right? A shot attempt. And then Embiid turns the ball over with 8.7 seconds left. They're down 105-103. And on that play, it was weird because Embiid had a wide open three-pointer, but he drove towards the basket, right? And then he was stripped by the guy Grady Dick. And then all of a sudden, Grady gets the ball, and then he tries to run out the clock, and Maxey fouls him. And then what happens? He splits one of them, so everybody says there's hope, there's hope. And then all of a sudden, Maxey goes up and he attempts a shot right before the buzzer, and he front rims it. And that was like 1 of 9 shooting. So what happened is, of course, there was a lot of boos, and the people were getting upset with the Sixers. And then all of a sudden, the Sixers PA system, people in charge of that, they turned the music up really loud so you could drown out the boos. But I'm going to tell you this, Kayla. Before that, people were booing them from the beginning of the game, right? Mm-hmm. Early on, they were getting booed. They were talking about heckling Josh Harris, right? They were yelling his name. And all the Eagles were there. So they were doing more chants for the Eagles, which is, they won a Super Bowl. Yeah. But it just seemed like, people were just upset with the Sixers. And a couple of guys were saying as they were walking out, was like, you know what? Thank God for the Eagles because the Sixers suck. You know what I mean? So it was bad. It was a rough night for them. And you could tell that the fans are a little bit upset. Some of them want Joel Embiid to just shut it down.
It really is crazy when you look at Joel Embiid. Now, granted, I understand he was 1 of 5 from three-point land, but that's a shot that he takes when he's contested and you say, oh, you don't want him to take it. I'm talking about the end of the game, the 8.7 seconds left. At the top of the key, he was wide open. Nobody was covering him. He drives in, and every time, throughout Joel Embiid's career too, when he dribbles in the lane and there's a bunch of guards coming after him, sometimes it gets a little sloppy. He turns it over. That's exactly what happened with the Philadelphia 76ers. So when you look at it right now, yes, Embiid finishes with 27-12, but those are mistakes you just can't make late in games. You were 13 games under 500 right now in a contest that you absolutely should have won, especially at home in Philadelphia. The city's hyped. The city's excited after the Eagles won the Super Bowl. And then now this is kind of what they have to watch. This is what they're looking at right now. And fans are very, very frustrated from that standpoint. So when you look at this game, the other thing I want to touch on too, we'll get back to the stars and the big three and everything in between. But when you have Jared Butler at 15 points, the second leading scorer off the bench, or really the second leading scorer for all the 76ers, but coming off the bench as the leading scorer. Grimes also having a decent game too. You kind of question yourself and say, where's everybody else? These are the new guys on the block. These are the new guys coming in to be within this Philadelphia 76ers team. And, they were able to give them their first lead in the second quarter. But other than that, this big three is not a big three. I don't even think you can call it that anymore. It is just not working for the Philadelphia 76ers. And a poor performance down the stretch from Joel Embiid as well. When you're the best player on your team, those are mistakes you just cannot make, especially in a very winnable game, Keith.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I think from the beginning, let's face it, Paul George has been the third fiddle. He's been
Yeah.
the odd man out. And from this game, they made a conscious effort of running things through Paul George. And I feel like Maxey was off to his side. He wasn't being aggressive. A couple of times when he got the ball, he was looking for Paul, trying to give it to him, things like that. I just felt like it wasn't organic. It was really forced. And when you look
Mm-hmm.
at it, Maxi only had two shot attempts, I believe, in the first half. Yeah, he only had two shot attempts. Paul George, he shot 2 for 5 in the first quarter. He was 2 for 6, I believe, in the second quarter. That was it. And then Embiid was basically carrying them. Now Quentin Grimes and Jared Butler, they did play well, but it was like they were getting easy baskets. They were doing
Yeah.
certain things. We're looking at it. Guys weren't really trying to defend them, right? Let's be at 100.
Right. Yeah,
And
you're right.
really, and Grimes really didn't shoot the ball all that well. Like, he was 1 for 6 on threes. He was bricking it. But, I felt like the thing is what Maxi was, you know, Maxi is normally ultra aggressive. He was being a little bit too passive, trying to get PG involved. And it got to a point where, in the fourth quarter, when it was crunch time, he was 1 for 4. Talking about Maxi, he was 1 for 9 for the game, but he was 1 for 4. And, when they go up against a quick, athletic team like the Toronto Raptors, you need to be able to match that with a quick guard in Tyrese Maxey. And it just seemed like he was just too passive. And that's why it didn't work.
It was weird to see Tyrese, be scoreless, especially throughout that first quarter, going to that second, 5 total points he finishes with. I mean, considering how good he's been throughout these past 2 games of stretches, he had 7, 8 games with 30 plus points. I mean, he was absolutely balling out there. Now, he was a minus 15 on the floor as well. So when you look at it for Tyrese Maxey's point of view, it's him trying to back off and I think do what the team needs him to do. Nick Nurse also, talked about maybe Tyrese battling with something physical, and Tyrese said, I'm fine, I'm good, no excuses. So, I'm sure that story will develop if it's something or if it's nothing. We'll kind of follow that from there. But, at the same point, I don't know. I understand, and this is something we've talked about on Locked On 76ers, is that you need to get Paul George involved somehow, but you need to figure out a way to do it with not having to take Tyrese Maxey out of doing what he does best. There has to be another way that you can get him involved, whether that be, maybe some rotations with just PG and Joel Embiid on the floor, figuring out how to make Paul George a little bit more comfortable and fit in with the offense that they currently have. But the answer, Keith, is not having Tyrese Maxey back off a little bit, especially when you're playing a team like the Toronto Raptors. I mean, they came in with a losing streak
Yeah.
as well, really with nothing to lose. That's not the answer.
Well, it's I think you got to give a little bit of both. Like you got to, because
Yeah,
let's face it, the last game before that, Tyrese and Joel were just straight gunning. They
two-man game,
weren't
right?
like,
Mm-hmm.
it was times when you felt like Tyrese and Joel should have passed the ball to anyone, and they didn't. But right now, you got to be able to pick and choose your spots to do it. You just can't like go out there and straight gun and then expect someone when you're on the bench to be able to warm up and do what they have to do. But at the same time, you can't do what Tyrese Maxey did, go 100% the opposite way or 180 the opposite way. Now here's the thing, they did talk about that they were going to have these lineups with PG and Embiid, and I didn't see enough of that. I didn't like, in the second quarter we saw Embiid go out there with him. Butler, Grimes, Kelly Oubre, and and then I believe it was Yabusele,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
at one point it was Justin Edwards. So you seeing them out there with them, and that's when Grimes and Butler did well when other people when they were trying to guard Embiid and other people. But I just didn't see enough of the Embiid Paul George lineup pairing for those two guys to get a little bit familiar with each other. I just didn't see it.
And I think that's something Nick Nurse needs to look at going forward. If you're going to play these guys, they're able to play, they're not sitting, things like that, nursing some injuries because you want, as you alluded to, you want to have a little bit of both. You want to be able to have all three coexist together, but how do you start doing that without having to take Tyrese Maxey out of his flow, out of his quickness, what he could do best? The way to do that is by playing a little bit of Paul George and Joel Embiid lineups more together throughout these games. So we did not see that last night against the Raptors. Once again, the 76ers fall 106 to 103. When we come back, we're going to dissect that last play call a little bit, touch on more about the 76ers really at the worst point of the season record wise that they have been all year. So we're going to break it right down on Locked On 76ers. But we do have to tell you about Wayfair. After the holiday hustle and everything in between, there's nothing like giving your home a little TLC. I definitely know, especially this time of year when you have family and some friends and celebrations and things like that, you want to be able to, when you're home, give your home a little bit of a makeover. I always find that decluttering and refreshing my space really just helps me get back into a routine, especially when I'm traveling, this, that, and the other. Whether you're tidying up, clearing out, or just want to give your space a new look to start the year, Wayfair has everything you need. So make sure you go check it out, all within your budget. I'm currently looking for furniture, and their huge selection makes it easy to find pieces that fit my style and my budget. And that's huge for somebody that's trying to, maybe ball on a budget a little bit and being able to get something that you want to fit in. If you have a certain aesthetic, anything that you want to color match, anything like that, a theme, this is perfect. My favorite part, the free and hassle-free delivery, even for the larger items. Wayfair's site was so easy to navigate, and I found everything I needed to as well. There's something for every style and every home, no matter your space or your budget. And that is absolutely true for Wayfair. Wayfair makes it easy to tackle your New Year's home goals with endless inspiration for every space and whatever your decor style might be. Now I get it. Everybody might have said, at the new year in January, you wanted to fix that up right away. Sometimes it takes time, and you want to be able to go to Wayfair to be able to check that out. Give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Make sure you go check it out today. So, Keith, I want to get your thoughts on the last play of the game. And, it's that Tyrese Maxey coming up, shooting the three. He was ice cold throughout the game, 5 points finishing with. And I know that Tyrese Maxey, he's been the guy going forward. Is that something you thought the 76ers should have pushed forward? Do you think they should have looked at anybody else? Because in that point, you need a three to be able to tie it and to send it into overtime. But Tyrese Maxey, he wasn't feeling it all night long. You have other guys out there. What were your thoughts on that last play for people not able to watch and, listening or watching this podcast? Tyrese Maxey got the last shot to try to tie the 76ers in overtime. Keith, what were
I
your
mean,
thoughts?
I think it's easy to criticize, but who else is going to take it? I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, do you want a draw, a play from that far from the rim for Joel Embiid? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
Paul George, maybe you might say, okay, Paul, you went 2 for 6 on threes. Okay, let's try to give you an opportunity to do it. I feel like, Maxi is the guy, one of the guys, although he shot 1 for 7, Joel shot 1 for 5, PG shot 2 for 6,
Oof.
right? Grimes shot 1 for 6. Butler shot 2 for 6. So at that particular point, it's kind of like you drawing straws. So let me say, who can I go with? I got to go with somebody clutch. Um, so to me, that I didn't really have a problem with that. And then let's face it, they were down by 3, and they needed to get a quick three up.
Right.
But so I really didn't have a problem with that one because I'm looking at the other people that would be able to take it, and nah, I don't see anybody out there that would have been able to do it. I mean, who I would have felt comfortable with doing it.
Right. Like, who do you put the trust in? Because that's a play they have run a few times and it's actually worked for the Philadelphia 76ers. I get that, he definitely was ice cold in this entire game, but he was playing a little bit of different style, trying to implement Paul George. I understand where people's frustrations may lie with Nick Nurse having that final play call, but I do think it's worked before. And Tyrese Maxey is your clutch guy, and that's who you want to go to. And time after time, he's been able to show it. And hey, if he makes it, Nick Nurse probably looks like a genius. I shouldn't say a genius because that hasn't happened all year, but people are probably more excited about that happening. If he misses it, then people can criticize it from there. But I do think that you look at Tyrese Maxey in that game because at the end of the day, you don't go to Joel Embiid because he just turned the ball over with a chance for the 76ers to really come out and win. Paul George has been inconsistent. Everybody else has been inconsistent. So Tyrese Maxey is just within the fold as well for this team. Once again, they fall 106 to 103 for people that maybe didn't get a chance to watch the game. Now, this is the thing. The 76ers, looking ahead just a little bit, will stay still kind of locked into this game. But you have the Nets, you have the Celtics, and then the Nets once again. We've alluded to it here on these episodes, Keith, that they have an easier schedule coming out through the rest of this Eastern Conference. But when you lose games in this fashion and like this, is there a chance? And I know there's a chance for everything, but the way that they're playing right now, I think there's a real chance that they might not make the play-in tournament. Now, I know that the Chicago Bulls probably are going to fall further down than the Philadelphia 76ers. I think the Sixers are in win mode to try to get into play-in contention right now. But, I mean, this team they don't win the games that they're supposed to. And that's something we've touched on as well. They don't win the games that they're supposed to. And this was a game last night that they should have won.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? We look at it and you say to yourself, what are they? They're 100. I mean, excuse me, they're a game and a half or 2 games and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're a game and a half behind the Chicago Bulls, right?
Yeah.
But look at the Bulls. The Bulls got spanked by the Pistons. They lost by 40. At one point they were down. It was like 60 something to 20 something.
Yeah.
So, we're looking at it and you're saying to yourself that, you know, yeah, the 76ers look bad and they look very extremely bad. They're 10 and 33, 13 games below 500, right? But then when you look at it, the Chicago Bulls are 22 and 32 and they're a game and a half ahead of the Sixers. And I look at it that I think that the Chicago Bulls are going to like basically lose more than the Sixers at the end of the day. So yeah, I still think it. I mean, here's the thing. Yeah, last night was a horrible loss. Um, Detroit was a horrible loss, but at the same time, Detroit just beat Chicago by 40.
Yeah.
Right?
They're looking good.
So,
They're
so
looking good right now.
so I mean, so it's just one of those things, and I just look at it. Whereas, yeah, you have the Toronto Raptors, they won a game. You have the Brooklyn Nets, who were below the Sixers on the 2-game winning streak, and but I kind of think that Brooklyn is going to shut it down to a point where they're
Right.
just going to say, hey, we're not going to let the 76ers pass us in the loss column. So I still, again, they got 29 games left, but at
Yeah.
this week, I still think that they're going to be a play-in tournament team. I do. I do.
And
Ask
right now,
ask me next week, it might be different.
yeah, it might be different. We're gonna be. This is gonna be interesting how this shakes up because once again, we're gonna see that they should win against the Nets, both of those games. Probably lose against the Celtics, but the teams that they should have beaten, they haven't beaten sometimes this season. And I look at the Bulls' schedule too. They have the Pistons again at home in Chicago. Then they take on the Knicks, the Suns, and then they take on the 76ers. That's on February 24th. So they have a little bit of a tougher schedule going forward where if the 76ers can win both of those games against the Nets, even if they fall against the Celtics, they might be in a little bit better shape. Now, still a little bit of time left as well to look at the bottom of the seedings right there. And all I'm going to say is the 76ers might be thanking the NBA right now and Adam Silver for putting in that play-in tournament because otherwise this will be a wash completely of a season right now and they wouldn't be even making the playoffs or in conversation to make the playoffs right now. But the 76ers fall last night as well. We're going to talk just about how rough it has been in terms of their 13 games under 500 right now, and how this big three, if this big three can be salvageable at any point of this season, and what they need to do to implement Paul George and everything in between. So we'll touch on that on the other side. But before we get to that, we have to tell you about Open Phone. Running a small business means you're wearing a lot of different hats. Your personal phone becomes your business phone. And before you know it, you're juggling customer calls day and night. As your team grows, it becomes impossible to manage everything with just your personal number. That's where Open Phone comes in as well. It's the #1 business phone system that you should check out today, and make sure you do, because it is designed to help you keep your work and personal life separate. For just $15 a month, the cost of a few coffees nowadays, you get complete transparency and visibility into everything happening with your business phone number. Open Phone works through an app on your phone or computer and integrates with tools like HubStop and hundreds of others. It also uses AI-powered call transcripts with summaries in well. So you'll have a rundown of your calls and action items on the second you hang up. And if you miss a call, no problem. Automated messages are sent directly to your customer, ensuring you never miss an opportunity to engage. So right now, OpenPhone is offering 20% off your first 6 months when you go to openphone.com/lockedonnba. That's OPENPHONE.com/lockedonnba for $20 off for 6 months. Openphone.com/lockedonnba. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over with no extra charge. So make sure you go check out Open Phone today. All right. So 13 games under 500. This team looks bad. The big three is not doing what they need to do. Keith, going forward, how do they win the games that they're supposed to win? Because you rely on this big three so much with how this team is constructed. And, granted, if Tyrese Maxey had more than 5 points last night, they probably win that game. But Tyrese Maxey has also carried this team in the last few games for the last few months of the Philadelphia 76ers. How do they come up with wins against the Nets and other teams that they should win against with this team, how it's constructed right now? Because the easy answer is get Paul George involved, but they tried to do that last night in a way that just really didn't work out for them.
They gotta have more balance. I mean, still, like they have to find a way. You're right. They have to find a way to get him involved, but also they have to find a way to get him involved, but don't make it impact Maxi. Now again, Paul George got to make shots too. Like
Well,
in that
yeah.
first quarter, there was he was, well, first of all, they they look they look really out of sync. You could tell they haven't played a lot because they give Paul George the ball, made a conscious effort to give him the ball in the first possession. He tried at one point, he tries to drive the lane, but Joel is clogging it up. So he kicks it out. And then no, he pauses and comes back out with it. And then they get a 5-second violation, right? Joel's standing in the lane, or 3 seconds. And you're like, come on, man. Like, what are you doing? You get a lane violation. Like, so then another time they come down, and then PG, he tries to he drives the lane, he gets the ball to Justin Edwards for an easy bucket. It looked great. Then another time they give it to PG, he has a wide open three and he bricks it, right? So it's like to a point where they have to get used to playing with each other, but also PG needs to make shots, and Maxi needs to basically just play for Phil, because there's certain times where one time he drives the lane. If he goes up, he gets an easy layup, and probably not easy, but yeah, he would have been easy, but the guy would have fouled him. So he would have got the and one. But what he does is he continues dribbling and he whips it around. He passes it to Paul. Paul misses it. So it's like one of those things where I think that you need all three of them, but it has to be a balance, right? It really does. Now, I'm gonna just say something else. Um, I don't like the starting lineup that they have right now either. I don't.
Good
And
point. Good
and
point.
and the and it's not a knock on anybody.
Right.
Like I like what Justin Edwards brings, right? I like what he brings. But I feel like with this lineup, you have Paul George playing power forward. Justin
Mhm.
Edwards is playing the three, right? Think about how successful they were when they had Gershon Yabusele playing a four, right? I really think that Paul would be better suited at the three, and you have Gershon playing a four. The reason being is I do like what Edwards brings on the defensive end. I think he's extremely efficient, but at the same time, I like the fact that Gershon is a quality shooter, 3-point shooter who can stretch the floor. I don't see that in this starting lineup. Now I know that Maxey can hit threes, Embiid can hit threes, PG can, Edwards can. But when Gershon, the thing is, when you have Joel Embiid, sometimes Joel Embiid wants to play in the perimeter. Gershon could go down in the paint, right? But also, when you're so focused on all those other guys, it's freeing Gershon up to get easy buckets, right? So, me personally, I would prefer to see that lineup. I really would. I would prefer to see that lineup.
It's crazy too because a few days ago or last week, we touched on Gershon Yabusele might be one of the better power forwards and stretch fives that have ever played side by side with Joel Embiid, just because of his versatility, because of his consistency. And then Nick Nurse goes away from that. And there's a lot of questions that arise for me within that. And once again, it's no disrespect to Justin Edwards or those guys in that starting lineup. It's just you don't need to have all of that in that starting lineup right away. You can bring it off the bench quickly. You can bring him as a sixth man because Gershon should be in the starting lineup right now. Also, Adem Bona, where was he at? I'm not saying that he's, the greatest thing to ever happen, but why aren't you going to that if you can push Gershon Yabusele into that starting lineup? Because that worked better than whatever the heck they were doing last night to start things off. You put out there a smaller lineup, you make Paul George even more uncomfortable there, and you're trying to get him implemented, but you're playing him essentially at a four position. Things are just not adding up. I'm in agreement with you there, Keith. And once again, I really like Justin Edwards. He was a two-way player before, and now he gets that full contract. But I do think that you need to have Gershon in that starting lineup to have Paul George play a more natural position. That's how you implement him. That's how you get things going. And that's how this team can try to string together some wins, because whatever last night was, you need to get other guys involved behind Joel Embiid. It could be a Dembona and other pieces, but I agree with you that Gershon should be in the starting lineup because that flowed a little bit more, and we've even seen that previously as well.
Yeah, and the thing is, the reason why Nick Nurse is doing it is because if you notice, Gershon is taking Adem's. Well, Gershon is now the backup center,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I understand you like it and like what he does, but at the same time, now you have Bona and Andre Drummond getting DMPs, right?
Right. Which
And the
makes no
thing
sense.
is, Bona was playing well, like you said. So, I don't I don't know. Now, again, like some people may say, look at Quentin Grimes, because Quentin Grimes started in the second half, right at the three.
Mm-hmm.
But my question is, it's like I think Quentin Grimes is better coming off the bench, right? I do. He could be that spark plug off the bench, and I really like his game, the whole nine. But you know what? If I had to start Gershon at the four, I would. You know what I mean? Because when you look at Grimes, as good as he played, he shot 2 for 6 in the second half. Now he
Right.
started the second half, but he shot 2 for 6 in the second half, and he tied Maxey for a game worst -8 in that half. Now he grabbed
Oh,
rebounds, he had 3 assists, but at the same time, he lost some of his in effectiveness shooting the ball, in the second half in that starting lineup.
yeah, he's definitely better off the bench as that spark plug. Once again, you can bring him in early. And I think that Nick Nurse also needs to look at too. You can start Gershon Yabusele, and you can also have him in certain rotations where if you need him to be that five, you can also have that later in the game or in the second quarter. It doesn't always have to be him at the four, but when you're starting out a game, you're trying to make an impact, you're trying to have lineups down the stretch, it should be Embiid and Gershon. And I don't really know where Adem Bona's minutes are going. And Ricky Council also only had 4 minutes in that game, too. So when you look at it, clearly a different position. But when you look at Bona, I understand he's a little bit more of a raw talent. He's younger. I get that, but he's strung together some good minutes, some good performances as well. You're not relying on him fully. And if you need to put Gershon in there on rotations at the 5, that will work. But at the same time, why are you going away from what works? And why are you making Paul George play in a position that's not his natural position when you're trying to get him involved in the game plan? So definitely a big question mark. We'll wait and see what the starting lineup looks like for tonight's game. Now it is the back-to-back, so we'll wait and see if Joel Embiid does play. Keith, I'm going to ask you just right off the bat, and I know we don't have the injury report right now, but do you think that Joel Embiid will play in this game? I would like to see him play because it's against the Nets, and I think this is a really big game you need to win to not continue this losing streak, but it is a back-to-back for the 76ers, so
No, I
it's
don't know
doubtful.
about this. I don't know about this one. I mean, like I would assume he would, right? Just
Yeah.
to get these reps in. But at the same time, you remember when he fell late in the second quarter and
Yeah, the
he
elbow.
injured his elbow.
Yeah.
So you have that going on, and also, I mean, I don't know. Like you would hope, but at the same time, you never know with Joel. You never know. Like if things would have went better, let's see how many minutes did Joel play last night
Yeah.
too,
Here
because
I can
let me see, he played
38.
38 minutes
Mhm.
and 1 second, so he was on the floor the second most outside of Kelly Oubre, who played 38 minutes 55 seconds. So he played 39 minutes. So, when you look at that, you say to yourself, like, that's a lot of minutes for Joel, knowing that he's undergoing his knee management. So, but I don't know. I gotta leave it up to I don't know.
Leave it
Yeah,
up to him, Nick
yeah,
Nurse, the
yeah.
medical staff. I will say, obviously it's not up to us. I would like to see him play because I think this is a game where you can, try to continue to get Paul George implemented the big three because every time they sit out, it's another game that they can't do that. They can't get used to that. And then you have the Celtics at home following that. So I do think it's a big game, but as you alluded to, they're monitoring the knee right now. The elbow situation happening last night when he got caught and fell to the ground. He continued to play, but that could sideline him for the game as well. So we'll wait and see. Once again, I'm not expecting him to play because he did say no to back-to-backs, but we will wait and see. This game happening tonight at 7:30 p.m. against the Nets on the road. So we will wait and see that starting lineup if Nick Nurse continues to make changes and what tonight will supply for the Philadelphia 76ers. Will they fall to 13 games under 500 and fall to Toronto 106 to 103. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On 76ers. For Keith Pompey, I'm Kayla Santiago saying so long, and we'll see you guys next time.